You know.
Sorry, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, those who are at the back where the serving station of the eats are, could you kindly make your way forward as we are about to commence with today's ceremony? Thank you. I appeal to you to please round up in the back so we can commence ASAP. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Vanakkam, namaste, namaskaram, good afternoon, family and friends. On behalf of both the Gounden and Reddy families, I would like to extend to all of you a very warm and cordial welcome to the late Rennisha Gounden. We are going to very quickly observe a moment of silence in honoring Ren as well as loved ones who have passed on. We're just going to do that quickly. I believe there is a ringing of the bell that we're going to honor our loved ones. May I ask all of you to please rise as we observe this. Thank you. Thank you. We will now open in prayer. Thank you. You may be seated. For this part, I am going to hand you over to Single Productions, who is going to take us through this afternoon's rituals. Thank you. You may be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Some house rules quickly before we continue. The ladies and gents, you will find at the rear end of this hall. Please, if you need to make use of it, again, I reiterate, ladies and gents at the rear end of this hall. All cell phones to be switched off. Alternately, they can be placed on mute to not cause any disturbance. Let's try and minimize noise levels throughout the service as a form of respect. Again, it is an honor and a privilege for me to hand over to Singham Productions. They are going to take us through the first half of the service, which will be dedicated to some devotional music. Thank you, and over to Singham Productions.
இன்ப விநாயகனே இன்ப விநாயகனே மலர்பாதம் பணிந்தேனே இன்ப விநாயகனே மலர்பாதம் பணிந்தேனே இன்ப விநாயகனே சோலையில் அமர்ந்திடும் அரசே அன்பம சோலையில் அமர்ந்திடும் அரசே அன்பம சோலையில் அமர்ந்திடும் அரசே ஆதாரம் நீயே ஆதருள்வாயே ஆதாரம் நீயே ஆதருள்வாயே இன்ப விநாயகனே மலர்பாதம் பணிந்தேனே இன்ப விநாயகனே இதயம் மலர்ந்ததில் இனித்திடும் கனி இதயம் மலர்ந்ததில் இனித்திடும் கனி இன்பமுள்ளாகும் அன்புடை நினையே இன்பமுள்ளாகும் அன்புடை நினையே இதமும் வாழ்வுகள் அருள்புகழ் நிறைந்திட வேண்டும் இதமும் அருள்புகழ் நிறைந்திட வேண்டும் கொஞ்சம் நீங்கிட வேண்டும் கொஞ்சம் நீங்கிட வேண்டும் இன்ப விநாயகனே மலர்பாதம் பணிந்தேனே நின்னருள் புகழ்ந்த பணியும் என்னையும் இறங்கி அருளும் தீன கருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே தீன கருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே தீன கருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே தீன கருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே நின்னருள் புகழ்ந்த பணியும் என்னையும் இறங்கி அருளும் நின்னருள் புகழ்ந்த பணியும் என்னையும் இறங்கி அருளும் மௌன குருவேதரணி இணையாத நீலகண்டனே மௌன குருவேதரணி இணையாத நீலகண்டனே மௌன குருவேதரணி இணையாத நீலகண்டனே மௌன குருவேதரணி இணையாத நீலகண்டனே நீலகண்டனே தீனகருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே தீனகருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே ನೀನಲೋಚನೀ ಮನಾಳ ತಾಂಡವಮಾಡು ಸಭಾಪದೇ ನೀನಲೋಚನೀ ಮನಾಳ ತಾಂಡವಮಾಡು ಸಭಾಪದೇ ನೀನಲೋಚನೀ ಮನಾಳ ತಾಂಡವಮಾಡು ಸಭಾಪದೇ ನೀನಲೋಚನೀ ಮನಾಳ ತಾಂಡವಮಾಡು ಸಭಾಪದೇ ஞானிகள் மனம் நிரம்பும் நீலகண்டனே ஞானிகள் மனம் நிரம்பும் நீலகண்டனே மௌன குருவே 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 தரணி கணிகாண்ட நீலகண்டனே தீனகருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே கருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே ஆதியுந்தமில்லா ஹரணே அன்பருள்ள பாரம் பரணே ஆதியுந்தமில்லா ஹரணே அன்பருள்ள பாரம் பரணே பாதிமதி மேதினி பரமேஷா நீலகண்டனே பாதிமதி மேதினி பரமேஷா நீலகண்டனே பாதிமதி மேதினி பரமேஷா நீலகண்டனே பாதிமதி மேதினி பரமேஷா நீலகண்டனே மௌன குருவே 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 தரணே கிரகான நீலகண்டனே தீன கருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே தீன கருணாகரனே நடராஜா நீலகண்டனே 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 நமச்சிவாய வாழ்க நாதந்தாள் வாழ்க இமைப்பொழுதும் எண்ணென்று நீங்காதார் தாழ் வாழ்க ஈசனடி போற்றி எந்தை அடி போற்றி தேசனடி போற்றி சிவன் சேவடி போற்றி போற்றி போற்றி
முருகா, ஓ முருகா, ஓ முருகா.
இந்த பாதவிந்த நோய் முருகா 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 சரவண வடிவேலா ஓ முருகா சரவண வடிவேலா திருவிழா வடிவேலா பரிவேலன் துணை முருகா
திருப்பதி வெங்கடேஸ்வரா தேவா நான் இருக்கும்
வற்றாத ஜீவ நதியாய் தவழ்ந்தாலும் மாணிக்க வீணையும் மலையேழும் மலைவாசா மாணிக்க வீணையும் மலையேழும் மலைவாசா மங்கைகள மேலும் மகிழும் புலாசா மங்கைகள மேலும் மகிழும் புலாசா ஹரி கோவிந்தா 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 வருவதையாவும் உன் ஒருவாரும் வந்ததையாவும் உன் ஒருவார வருவதையாவும் உன் ஒருவார வந்ததையாவும் உன் குருவாக குருவாக வந்து கொடி வல்லனாக குருவாக வந்து கொடி வல்லனாக குருவாக வந்து கொடி வல்லனாக குருவாக வந்து கொடி வல்லனாக கொடுத்தருள வேண்டும் பேரருளாக கொடுத்தருள வேண்டும் பேரருளாக அந்த தேனிருக்கும் இடத்தில் பாடிருக்க வேண்டும் திருப்பதி வெங்கடேஸ்வரா அறிவேவா நான் இருக்கும் இடத்தில் நீ இருக்க வேண்டும் ஹரிநாராயணா முரளீதரா ஹரி கோவிந்தா 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 எங்களவாடா வெங்கடரமணா கோவிந்தா 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 என்று வரவேண்டுமே அதை நீயே தருவாரே அம்மா என்றழைக்காத உயிரில்லையே அம்மாவை வணங்காத உயிரில்லையே மாணிக்கமணி வைத்து அவையாரும் ஒரு காற்று கீழாகுமா விலை மீது விலை வைத்து கேட்டாலும் கொடுத்தால் கடை தள்ளில் தாயன்று கிடைக்காதுமா ஈரைந்து மாதங்கள் கருவோடு இணைத்தாகி நீ பட்ட பெருமாள் அறிவே நான் பட்டு கடந்தீரமா உன்னாலே பிறந்தேனே அம்மா என்றறியாத உயிரில்லையே அம்மாவை வணங்காத உயிரில்லையே நேரில் பேச தெய்வம் பெற்ற தாயின்றி வேறொன்று அம்மா என்றழைக்காத உயிரில்லையே அம்மாவை வணங்காத உயிரில்லையே அம்மா என்றழைக்காத உயிரில்லையே அம்மாவை வணங்காத உயிரில்லையே
शिव शिव शंकर महादेवा हर देवा हर शिव शिव शंकर महादेवा भक्तिरुमाणी शिव पेरुमाणी எல்லோர்க்கும் நீர் தெய்வம் சிவ பெருமானே சிவ பெருமானே சிவ பெருமானே எல்லோர்க்கும் நீர் தெய்வம் சிவ பெருமானே எல்லோர்க்கும் நமச்சிவாயா ஒவ்வொரு மனிதன் கவலைக தீர்க்க நீரானையா தாய் தந்தை எல்லோர்க்கும் நமச்சிவாயா ஒவ்வொரு மனிதன் கவலைக தீர்க்க நீரானையா சிவபெருமானே சிவபெருமானே எல்லோர்க்கும் நீ தெய்வம் சிவபெருமானே அன்னை தந்தை குரு தெய்வமே அன்னை தந்தை குரு தெய்வமே ஆண்டவனே நீரும் செய்வாரே ஆண்டவனே நீரும் செய்வாரே சிவபெருமானே சிவபெருமானே தெய்வமே அம்மே அப்பா குரு தெய்வமே ஆண்டவனே நீ அருள் செய்வாயே ஆண்டவனே நீ அருள் செய்வாயே நமச்சிவாயவோ நீ தெய்வமே நமச்சிவாயவோ நீ தெய்வமே காத்தருள்வாயே நீ அருள் செய்வாயே காத்தருள்வாயே நீ அருள் செய்வாயே சிவபெருமானே சிவபெருமானே எல்லாம் நீ தெய்வம் சிவபெருமானே தாய் தந்தை எல்லோருக்கும் நமச்சிவாயா ஒவ்வொரு மனிதன் கவலைகள் தீர்க்க நீதானையா ஒவ்வொரு மனிதன் கவலைகள் தீர்க்க நீதானையா ஒவ்வொரு மனிதன் கவலைகள் தீர்க்க நீதானையா தேவா தேவா மகாதேவா ஹர ஹர சங்கர மகாதேவா தேவா தேவா மகாதேவா ஹர ஹர சங்கர மகாதேவா ஹர தேவா தேவா மகாதேவா சிவ சிவ சங்கர மகாதேவா தேவா தேவா மகாதேவா சிவ சிவ சங்கர மகாதேவா ஹர தேவா மகாதேவா ஹர சிவ சிவ சங்கர மகாதேவா ஹர தேவா ஹர தேவா ஹர சிவ சிவ சங்கர மகாதேவா மலைராஜர் திருக்கோயில் மணியாடவே சுகமான அருள் பாடல் இசை கேட்குதே மலைராஜர் திருக்கோயில் மணியாடவே சுகமான அருள் பாடல் இசை கேட்குதே அபிஷேக மனம் காட்டில் அலை வீசுதே அபிஷேக மனம் காட்டில் அலை வீசுதே ஐயப்பன் படம் தேடி மனமோடுதே ஐயப்பன் படம் தேடி மனமோடுதே மலைராஜர் திருக்கோயில் மணியாடுதே சுகமான அருள் பாடல் இசை கேட்குதே
சுகமான அருள் பாடல் இசை கேட்குதே. மலைராஜ திருக்கோவில் மணியாடுதே, சுகமான அருள் பாடல் இசை கேட்குதே. மலைராஜ திருக்கோவில் மணியாடுதே, சுகமான அருள் பாடல் இசை கேட்குதே. அபிஷேக மனம் காட்டு அலை வீசுதே, அபிஷேக மனம் காட்டு அலை வீசுதே. ஐயப்பன் படம் தேடி மனமோடுதே, ஐயப்பன் படம் தேடி மனமோடுதே. மலைராஜ திருக்கோவில் மணியாடுதே, சுகமான அருள் பாடல் இசை கேட்குதே. சரணம் சரணம் ஐயப்பா சுவாமி சரணம் ஐயப்பா, 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 சரணம் சரணம் ஐயப்பா சுவாமி சரணம் ஐயப்பா. நல்ல செய்திகள் சொல்லும் மணி ஓசை பாசத்தின் ஓசை மணி ஓசை தேவன் கோவில் மணி ஓசை நல்ல செய்திகள் சொல்லும் மணி ஓசை தேவன் கோவில் மணி ஓசை நல்ல செய்திகள் சொல்லும் மணி ஓசை தேவன் கோவில் மணி ஓசை நல்ல செய்திகள் சொல்லும் மணி ஓசை அருமே மகனே எங்களும் ஆற்றி வழுகும் கோவில் மணி ஓசை அருமே மகனே எங்களும் ஆற்றி வழுகும் கோவில் மணி ஓசை இது அண்ணா அண்ணா எனவோ குழலில் அடங்கும் கோவில் மணி ஓசை தேவன் கோவில் மணி ஓசை நல்ல செய்திகள் சொல்லும் மணி ஓசை பாவிகள் மீதும் ஆண்டவன் காட்டும் பாவிகள் மீதும் ஆண்டவன் காட்டும் பாசத்தின் ஓசை மணி ஓசை தேவன் கோவில் மணி ஓசை நல்ல செய்திகள் சொல்லும் மணி ஓசை தேவன் கோவில் மணி ஓசை நல்ல செய்திகள் சொல்லும் மணி ஓசை.
Thank you, Singham Productions, for that time of devotion. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to an intermission now of formalities. And first up, to celebrate and honor and pay tribute in the form of dance to our beautiful Ren, it is my privilege to introduce as the opening item the gracious Kali Shakti Institute, who will grace us with a dance performance. Over to you, Kali Shakti Dance Institute. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Bluetooth connected.
I'm sure it brought tears to many who appreciated the art of dance, and with the way Ren showed and performed the art of dance, this definitely stirred up some memories for many of us that are here today. Ladies and gentlemen, the first speaker today is someone who shared a sister-like relationship with Ren. I'm sure this comes with many happy moments, crazy and fun times, and definitely memories to treasure. I am going to now call on Rennisha Gounden, who will take the platform to speak a little bit to us about Ren. Thank you, Rennisha. Over to you.
To the living, I am gone. To the sorrowful, I will never return. To the angry, I was cheated. But to the happy, I am at peace. And to the faithful, I have never left. I cannot speak, but I can listen. I cannot be seen, but I can be heard. So as you stand upon a shore, gazing at a beautiful sea, as you look upon a flower and admire its simplicity, remember me. Remember me in your heart, your thoughts, and your memories. Of the times we loved, the times we cried, the times we fought, the times we laughed. For if you always think of me, I will never be gone. Vanakkam, Namaste, and good afternoon, friends and family. Today, I stand here, still with a heavy heart, still thinking that this is just a bad dream. My beautiful Ren, where do I begin? The past 4 years that I've spent with the TTA family has filled, if not exceeded, my memory capacity. We all shared amazing moments, happy moments, and yes, also some very angry and sad moments. Our phones will definitely keep you alive, Ren, through the hundreds of photos and videos that we have taken at events. I will never forget my last conversation with you. You said, Auntie Tweety, we must tread. TTA needs to be more active on social media. Least did I know, the very next day, you would be trending on international news, the news of your passing. I miss you, Ren. I miss your messages. I miss your voice notes at 6 a.m. telling me what our plans are going to be for the day, the services that we're going to render, the songs that you wanted us to sing. I miss your loud laughter. And I pray that wherever you are, your soul is at peace. I thank you for all that you have done for us. You will live on forever in our memories. To my TTA family, I'm sure all of you know, every time Sandy and I walked in that door in Sandfields, the first thing Rennisha would say, look, Viven is now alive. His two sisters have arrived. And she would always say, guys, today when you hear Verve laugh, that's Verve really laughing. Because only Tweety and Sandy can make Viven really laugh. Verve, we've stood by you the past year. We will continue standing by you, Ma and Phoebe. You have our entire support. Phoebe, I am super, super proud of what you've achieved and the way that things are heading for you, my darling. Remember that we are always here for you, baby. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, twins. Sorry, I just need just a second to compose myself. I think I got talking to Verb in the week, and our conversations obviously surrounded the person Ren was. And I said to Verb how silly it was that sometimes Ren would text me to tell me, Ren, can you send me a voice note just to make me laugh? And I stand here today and echo the same sentiments that Tweety has echoed here regarding the laughter. And Sandy, you'll be a testament to this. This is what Ren was all about. Laughter, fun. And yes, for the times that I visited, Verve, the hospitality, hats off to the person Ren truly was. And I said to Verve, there was something that stood out for me. For those of you who can go back a year and remember, and obviously had Ren on your WhatsApp, her status on WhatsApp the day that she passed on. And it actually brought back this memory as I highlighted this to Verve just this morning. And I said to him, remember Verve, we go on questioning so much about the occurrences of that day, why Ren, why her, etc. And this was what her status read on that day. It read, all the best Verve, we know that you're going to do an amazing job at your new place of work. Hashtag God's plans. His plans are certainly bigger than ours. So ladies and gentlemen, for many of us that sit here questioning, Ren herself knew what the Maker had in store for her. And in saying this, it is an absolute honor for me to call on the next speaker, a rather brave gesture indeed, for me to call on the little Rennisha Gounden. He is going to join me and he is going to recite a poem to his mom today. Is this your poem? Over to you, Viren. If you want to stand there, it's fine. I'll move the mic and you can.
Mommy, I miss you every day since you had to go away. The house is quiet, but not the same. I still whisper your sweet name. You dance like the sunshine on the floor. Now I dance by myself and wish for more. You are my teacher and kind and smart. You still live inside my heart. At night I look up at the moon, hoping I'll see you again soon. I tell the stars about your smile and its shine for a little while. I hug your scarf, I smell your scent, and I think of all the time we spent. You brush my hair and kiss my knee. You always made the best of me. I'm trying hard to be brave, to make you proud from my cloud wave. But sometimes I just want to cry because I need you, Mommy, in the sky. I'll dance for you when I feel blue because I know you're dancing too. In my dream I feel your soft embrace. My angel mom with a glowing face. I love you more than I can say. I miss you more with every day. But I will still keep you in my song because in my heart you still belong. Thank you.
Thank you, Viren. Please. That was rather brave. Hats off to you, little one. Okay, we're now going to move on to a slideshow. Sholan, if you can signal me, and you have that ready. Okay, we're good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to draw your attention to a slideshow for the next few minutes. Please do bear with us. We won't be much longer. Thank you so much for your patience.
didn't know today would be our last, that I'd have to say goodbye to you so fast. I'm so numb I can't feel anymore. I'm praying you just walk back through that door and tell me that I was only dreaming. You're not really gone as long as I believe. There will be another angel around the throne tonight. Your love lives on inside of me, and I will hold on tight. It's not my place to question, only God knows why. I'm just jealous of the angels around the throne tonight. Always made my troubles feel so small, and you were always there to catch me when I'd fall. In a world where heroes come and go, well, God just took the only one I know. So I'll hold you as close as I can, longing for the day when I see your face again. But until then, God must need another angel around the throne tonight. Your love lives on inside of me, and I will hold on tight. It's not my place to question, only God knows why. I'm just jealous of the angels around the throne tonight, singing I'm just jealous of the angels around the throne tonight.
I'm sorry that I left you. I know you feel alone, but God told me that He needed me. He called me to come home. It would seem to be an instant, in the twinkling of an eye. An angel gently took my hand and led me toward the sky. As I ascended into heaven, beyond the pearly gates, angels were rejoicing. Then I saw his radiant face. God's eyes shone down upon me from the glory of his throne. He said, enter into paradise, 'cause heaven's now your home. I fought the fight, I finished the race. Throughout the trial, I kept my faith. No longer do I suffer, my body's been made whole. I'm flying with the angels, and heaven's now my home. God told me not to worry. He said you'd be okay, because eternity's forever, and we'll meet again someday. I fought the fight, I finished the race. Throughout the trial, I kept my faith. No longer do I suffer, my body's been made whole. I'm flying with the angels, heaven's now my home. I'm flying with the angels, heaven's now my home.
That railroad crossing up there is exactly a quarter mile away from here. On the green, going toward.
Without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Damn, who knew? All the planes we flew, good things we've been through. Then I was standing right here talking to you about another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but something told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place. You in a better place. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I would do, you were standing there by my side. And now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
Been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
See you again.
We've come a long way
Came a long way.
from where we began.
You know we started.
Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
Tell you.
When I see you again.
So, I thought for sure you showed up with some chrome spinners or something. Watch your way, get the vibe is feeling strong and
I
smart.
got $10 that says I can take you over the next quarter mile.
Yeah, you broke ass got $100 grand.
Pull up this job for the next 2 lights.
First in the line, never be crossed. Established it on our own when that line had to get joined in that line. Is what we do, so remember me when I'm online. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I would do, you were standing there by my side. And now you gon' be looking for the last ride.
Let the light guide your way. Yeah. Hold every you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Most important thing in life always be let's go. Right here. Right now. Salute me, familia.
Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back your. There's a time they don't remember, and I did not know no pain. When I believed in forever, everything will stay the same. Now my heart feels like December when somebody say your name. 'Cause I can't reach out to call you, but I know I will one day. Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday. Everything will be alright, only the constant say. Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back your. Memories bring back your. There's a time that I remember when I never felt so lost, and I felt all the hatred was too bad for the stars. Now my heart feels like an ember, and it's lighting up the dark. I'll carry these torches for you, and you know I'll never drop. Yeah, everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday. Everything will be alright, only the constant say. Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Toast to the ones here today. Toast to the ones that we lost on the way. 'Cause the drinks bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back your.
Thank you, Sholan. Over this past year, the wave of support from friends and families has certainly been phenomenal. The calls, the texts, the checkups have been great. However, a man that has certainly stood the test of time, God knows the toiling and the tears, yet you still reach out to others in need and simultaneously play the role of both mom and dad, and this you do effortlessly. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I'm going to call on Rennisha Gounden. He's going to take the platform. There are a few items lined up. So at this point in time, Wilf, I'm going to hand the microphone over to you. Thank you.
Bluetooth mode.
Please forgive me if I break.
Bluetooth connected.
Those of you who attended the Ren and my wedding would have realized this, the reason why I asked Kali Shakti Dance Institute to dance for Ambale Tarase. Anybody can say why? Yes, we walked in, that was our entry song for our wedding. I felt it was very befitting to start our second half of the program. I'm going to try and speak, I'm going to try and sing. I prepared, but I don't know. Please bear with me if I go off Sudi and had a phone. I just called to hear your voice once more. Wouldn't go to because I need to tell. Inia Makkal, Yen Anbula Vanakkam. Good afternoon, dear friends and family. It is with a heavy heart that I pay tribute to a remarkable soul, my wife, Rennisha Gounden, who graced our existence with a warmth, wisdom, courage, and not forgetting a contagious laugh. See, I said contagious laugh again. Everyone mentioned contagious laugh. As I navigate the painful currents of our loss, I shall embark on a journey to encapsulate the essence of our departed soul, who in an earthly presence defined the very essence of unconditional love. On the afternoon of 3rd June 2024, the tornado ravaged our property, and my spouse was caught in the center of this tornado. In 45 seconds, our life has changed for the worst. And I searched for her and I couldn't find her. Eventually I located her outside the sliding door, held her in my arms and immediately tried to locate her pulse. There was a calm moment of silence that prevailed. Ren gave off 3 gasps and I realized she left me to go to a creator. All hope was lost. I screamed for help. Where was God when I needed him the most? Do you know what they do not tell you as a widow? They do not tell you that when you lose your spouse, you lose more than just that person. You lose a piece of yourself, because when that person leaves, they leave a massive void in your heart that cannot be filled. They do not tell you how things are so hard every day. They do not tell you how hard it is to get out of bed and how hard it is to go do something you used to do with that person, because now it brings back memories, and if you do not avoid it, you are going to end up crying, or you're going to end up getting emotional, and you will have to deal with it. No one tells you that you now have to put something beside you in bed, like a bunch of pillows, so you do not feel alone. They do not tell you this. You have to find this out on your own. You lose so much of yourself when you lose your loved ones. Grief is the price we pay for love. Ren's death is a reminder that life is very uncertain, but death is certain. We are all role players in this movie called life, and once our role is concluded, it is time to depart and to be one with our Creator. I have many sleepless nights crying myself to bed and questioning God, why must I be the one suffering all the time? Many present here today comforted me and told me that God chooses his toughest warriors to face such challenges. How many battles am I supposed to face and fight? For some time after Ren's death, I refused to pray. But it was God and my family together with the Tamil Academy that got me through this ordeal. Ren was loved by all. Her compassion and love for teaching led her to being employed at the Department of Education at Mitchell Primary School. She believed in always giving back to the community, hence being a part of the Tangat Secondary Interact Club and co-founding Tangat Tamil Academy. Ren always wanted the best for her students. I remember when we experienced the 2022 floods, we lost our home and both our motor vehicles. We both assisted the Rotary Club with hampers and other essentials to those in need. Ren also had students in the class that were less fortunate than others were. When it came to excursions, she did not hesitate to pay for the child at school and that child who could not afford it. Her motto, the more we give, the more we will receive. Ren was a motivator, my inspiration, and she always encouraged me and her followers to go above and beyond and to always think out of the box. Her unwavering love for Viren is truly missed, and I can see how much he misses his mom. Rennisha's favorite line was, "Do not stress, God will always make a plan," and this was so true in our lives. Rennisha was a passionate dancer. She taught TTA dances and played a pivotal role in music. Eventually she started to sing, and boy did she teach us a thing or two. Her presence is deeply missed by all of us. Our lives goes on without Ren, but nothing will ever be the same. We have to hide our heartaches when someone utters your name. Living our lives without you is the hardest part. A song by Cooper Allen in 2023, "Never Not Remember You," comes to mind. I quote, "I know you are up in heaven, but damn, it hurts like hell. Because I'd be just pretending if I said anything else, and I know God does not make mistakes, but this sure feels like one. That won't change the fact that it won't bring you back. It is very challenging to lose people you thought would never leave you. But you will be okay because you have no choice. When we lose people we love, we have to find a way to keep going for people we still love and have present with us. I know that Prabh has prepared a vote of thanks, but I have to thank a few people who stood by me during this roller coaster year. I was told that I have no one and I am an orphan now. I lost my brother-in-law, my mom, my sister, my dad, and now my spouse. In all the trauma that I experienced, I am blessed with the best and forever grateful for those persons. I have lost my mother, but I gained another mother, Auntie Manu. I have no words to express my gratitude for you and for what you have been doing for us and for Vivi and for myself. We may not show it, but we are forever grateful and we love you. I lost my sister and my brother-in-law, but I gained another sister and brother-in-law, Rani and Praveen. I have also gained 3 sisters, Tweety, Sandy, and Monica. I have gained the love of another brother-in-law, Avesh. Your unwavering love and support will never be forgotten. To my brother Dalton and sister-in-law, Shaista, no amount of words can be sufficient to thank you for the love and support you guys showed me. I have gained 2 sons, my eldest Shantan, and my youngest, my boss man, Rennisha Gounden. You people fill my heart with immense love. To my uncle and aunt, Babana and Salima, thank you for continuing to be the father and mother figure in my life. To our neighbors in the flat, thank you for your time, support, visits, and scrumptious meals prepared for all the prayers done today. My aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, colleagues, Thank you all. If you knew Rin, you'd know that she loved to sing and dance. I conclude this tribute by singing a song Rin loved hearing when I sang, when we perform, and after I sing, we will perform a fusion dance consisting of folk, modern Bharatanatyam, Gomi, and Kolatam composed by Rennisha Gounden. What a better way to remember Rin's legacy. Please don't crucify me for dancing at my wife's ceremony, because after the 16-day ceremony, I was crucified by lots of people saying that he lost his wife and he is dancing. This is my way of remembering my wife. It's my wife. Okay?
Truly, I'm sure we are blessed listening to that. Over to the Tonga Tamil Academy now, who is going to also bless us in the form of dance in the honor of our beautiful Rennisha Gounden. Over to you, TTA. Please take note, for this dance item there is one dancer that is short in the dance item due to an emergency he had to attend to. Thank you for your understanding, ladies and gentlemen. beautiful collaboration there. Thank you so much for that item. I know that you put in a lot of work into this, and yes, Rennie's probably smiling down on all of you, feeling so proud that you pulled this off with ease. Hats off to you. Hats off to you. There was a dancer that wasn't supposed to be dancing, I see. Okay. Before we move on to the second part, which we are going to do very swiftly, I am going to call on our final speaker, none other than Vivian. Is going to join me for the concluding speech. Over to you, young man.
My dearest mommy, I love you so much. I still don't understand why God had to take you away from us. I'm only 8 years old. I miss you more than words can ever say. If you hear me, it's your little boy, Vivian Gounden. I wish with all of my heart that you could still be here with us. I miss you. I miss your hugs, your laugh, and always your eyes sparkled. When you danced around the living room, you were not only my mommy, you were my best friend. I still remember how you helped me with my reading, how you held my hand when I was scared, and forgetting how you scolded me. I always starting with feeling. Even though you are gone to be with God, I know you are still with us in spirit. I feel you are still, and I see in you in the stars when I look up at night. I promise I will keep your legacy alive, and I will be kind and strong, and I will do my best in everything I do, just like how you taught me. I will make you proud.
Little Vivi, Mommy is certainly proud of you. He's 8 years old. That was just phenomenal. Okay, as I mentioned, as the immediate family are done with their offerings, then other family, relatives, friends, you are welcome, however, in larger groups, so we can conclude this in a dignified and in an organized manner. Do bear with us, but it is still my privilege to hand over to you to Singham Productions as they continue to serenade us. Over to you, Singham Productions. Thank you.
Great.
Maria,
To the constraint of time, let's just come in bigger groups to allow for this process to obviously go by smoothly. Thank you so much.
Shakara Shiva Shankara